Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus, where we tackle complex metaphysical, supernatural issues. I don't think that there is an issue more metaphysical than the idea that Earth is a, quote, prison planet. Some people have requested that I cover this on this show. And so what we're going to be doing is looking at the Farsight Institute's their trailer for their film, documentary, whatever you want to call it, on their premium subscription website, where they have their team of remote viewers try to pinpoint what is going on with this concept that Earthlings, people here, are actually prisoners that are incarnated on this planet somehow against their will. So before we delve into this, there's a couple of things that I want to explain first for anyone watching. First, I'd like to talk about what this prison planet concept is all about. So it's definitely tied in with a couple of very influential metaphysical / conspiracy theorist authors out there who have pushed this idea quite a bit. And I want to state very clearly that I think that in the New Age communities, but also much more pronounced in the kind of alternative metaphysical communities and or the conspiracy communities, you have people who actually have a vested interest in keeping people scared and keeping people basically listening to their videos, buying their products, which happens more when you keep people scared, right? So I have not been impressed by some of these authors who have postulated certain ideas that tend to go on the more extreme scale. One author in particular, maybe for example, is David Icke, who I do think has a lot of good content, or actually he's very eye-opening with his spiritual messages, but I don't believe, for example, that the royal family are literally reptiles, whereas he seems to believe this. If there is any truth behind that, and it's much more complex than how people are interpreting that. Likewise, there's another author who pushes the idea that basically all near-death experiences and all afterlife contacts are a trap, a deception, and that the grand ultimate plot is just to get you to reincarnate back on this planet again. Now, I find this belief, even if there may be, again, grains of truth behind it, it can be very problematic because for the most part, lots and lots of us, millions of us, have legitimate contact experiences with our deceased loved ones. Do you really want to go and break their hearts by telling them that you think that they are some big evil demon creature in disguise? And I don't think that that is rational. I think that is paranoia. Now, certainly I do think that there is probably a level of nefarious things happening in worlds beyond this one, and there may even be an interest in getting people to reincarnate here in order to serve certain entities. I talk more about this when we discuss the concept of hollow heavens. I don't believe that all encounters with the light or the higher self are should we say deceptive, but I do think that there can be deceptive encounters with things that are higher beings or impersonating higher beings, which is where we go into the half-truths, which are common in this field. Hollow heavens, for example, is the very widely reported phenomenon of people who cross over or go into out-of-body trips or even get shown by guides, the result of people who have extreme religious viewpoints and how they cluster into worlds that match those viewpoints, where basically everybody can agree that, okay, this entity on a throne with a big beard is the Yahweh of the Bible, and that we have to go and worship it. But there's no saying who or what that entity really is that is posing as the God of the Old Testament. This is where we may even go into realms of Gnosticism, ideas again of deception happening after we cross over. This film, The Death Traps, which was put together by the Farsight Institute, basically the idea is that something, some entity or some force or some system has an interest in keeping us reincarnating against our will, and that we ultimately, when we cross over, we have to be extremely mindful of this so that we don't come back here, that nothing coerces us or tells us or makes us have to come back into this cycle of existence. And I think that just goes without saying. You shouldn't be coerced by fear or systems or hierarchies telling you what to do. And personally, I think that the biggest danger of that comes with the religious fundamentalists, because a religious fundamentalist will cross over and be awestruck by whatever happens to them. They have no awareness of what really happens when you go into a higher dimension, how it really works, like we talk about here. They just automatically assume all of it's going to be what the Bible told them was going to happen, and they will be highly suggestible, highly susceptible to any entity that wants to come along and manipulate them and tell them that they have to come back again and basically, go into any kind of soul agreement or contract, to keep serving those, I guess you could call it, archonic forces. So yes, I totally do believe all that is true, but I think that conspiracy culture pushes that too far into levels of paranoia, which kind of borders on other conspiracy theories that become, sometimes very difficult to conceptualize when you have to imagine, thousands or millions of people lying about things, or millions of experiences with deceased loved ones and the afterlife and beautiful worlds and higher states of consciousness and clarity and the bliss of worlds beyond this one. To just say that all of that is some archonic entity manipulating us, like at this point we're in flat earth territory, or the conspiracy theories that certain historical events didn't really happen, and thousands of people are lying. No, I don't believe that whatsoever. All that said, I then turned to the Farsight Institute, seeing if they would figure out where the half-truths pan out, what that half of the truth is. In what way is our planet possibly a prison planet? I then went further, and I ended up actually with a very prominent medium having a reading just a few months ago. And amazingly, these concepts tied into some personal revelations concerning my father that made a lot of sense in retrospect when my father was alive on this planet. And all of this ties into the concept that there is a system in place that is making people have to come back and reincarnate. But the big caveat, and I think this is really important, and this is what seems to be revealed in this documentary, is that it's something that seems to be quite literally a prison system, in the sense that entities that are probably really bad are the ones being forced to reincarnate here, specifically so that they don't incarnate into, let's say, the former species that they belong to, whereupon they may continue to raise hell throughout the cosmos. So the idea right away that all entities who are kind of, forced to come back here, if that does happen, are always without blame and just innocent victims, seems to be debunked a little bit in this video, which I find very interesting. So we'll play the trailer, then I'll do a commentary at the end, talk about what this medium revealed to me about this. One more thing I want to mention about the Farsight Institute. So this YouTube channel is very popular. Remote viewing is highly verifiable. There's been some criticism about the Farsight Institute, if they really have as strict standards as they claim. Normally, remote viewing requires multi-blind studies where all they do is remote view a string of numbers, and then they have no awareness at all of what the target is. The Farsight Institute claims this is how they operate, and the remote viewers operate independently. It was revealed that not all of the remote viewers in this organization do operate independently. It would appear that at least one remote viewer in a video that was released was being given cues or being prompted by Courtney, the main facilitator, the owner of this institute, into what she should say, which raised a lot of alarm bells that this organization was somehow fraudulent. I don't believe it's fraudulent. Their explanation was that this particular remote viewer was a beginner, and they did a preliminary session, and then they did the recorded session, and he was trying to keep her on point into what she said in the preliminary session. I do think that pokes some holes in the strict standards required for remote viewing, but I give them the benefit of the doubt that the other remote viewers in this institute are going by the proper protocols of working by themselves in a completely blinded condition. I am aware of some of these remote viewers who have worked independently of the institute and, of course, come up with great hits, great results. These are, some very well-known remote viewers who work on this. I don't think that this institute or all the people involved are all faking it. I know through my research, it's a great book by a guy named John Vivanco, who actually was hired by not only the U.S. government but private companies. Him and his team. He had his own remote viewing company, and they were phenomenally successful. And I believe they made a lot of money doing it until they ended that company because of basically threats against personal safety. So we know that remote viewing is the real deal, and that we can use remote viewing to try to figure out the mysteries behind some of these much crazier subjects. So anyway, so let's hear a little bit about the trailer for the death traps, and we'll basically I'm just going to play off of the YouTube channel and take a look at this.
What I am about to tell you and show you is probably the most astounding thing that you may have ever been told in your entire life. Initially, I expect that very few will believe it or even try to consider it. It will sound too outlandish or over the top for most people. But whatever you do with this information, whether you believe it or not, at least for myself, know that after looking at the accumulation of data collected at Farsight over a great many years, I am certain it is true. A picture has gradually emerged that seems as undeniable as it is astounding. Earth has long been a planet that has been operated as a prison, and I mean this literally, not as a metaphor for something else. People who live here were mostly dumped here from somewhere else, from other planets on other star systems within our own galaxy, and possibly some star systems in other nearby galaxies. They get dumped here by being born here. They lose all their memories of who they were in the past, where they came from, who their families are and were, and they don't remember the property that they owned that was taken from them.
He does not know who he is, who he was. This dude is lost. Like, he started to calm down and remember stuff, but then when that electricity happened, it's like it tossed him out.
Everyone is processed in a way that erases all such memories. And the key to running this prison has always been from the beginning to suppress all knowledge of every prisoner's past.
And it doesn't feel like he remembers who he was or who he used to be. It feels like a blank slate now, like there's no substance to him.
And when people die on Earth, a technique was established to involuntarily recycle them back into another life on this planet, memory-free, so that they could never leave. Dying offers no escape from this place.
I sense numbness and booming sounds and lots of roaring, like an explosion happened. And there's lots of loud noises and chaos and shaking, like a rumble, shaking, and just strong energetics being placed upon the structure. There's lots of electricity, and frequency sounds are coming from something. There's huge amounts of shaking. And pain and screaming.
While it is impossible to show you everything related to the prison planet idea in only one video, we can manageably focus on the method used to erase people's memories after they die. It is a process that is so cruel, so barbaric, and yet so unbelievable, it is best to show you rather than tell you. I will ask you to be patient as I step you through how it is done. Any hope of escaping from this prison will depend on understanding the workings of the death traps.
One of these guys are absolutely not nice. Like the other two are almost neutral, but more bad than good. But this one guy, like, he's got this triangular-ish esque shape. He's not nice at all. He's mean. He's bad. He's bad. Very cunning and bad. He's bad energy, mean, not nice.
Specifically, the subject just can't remember things, so he's going in a loop. It's a continuous loop of being in a specific place and a specific event and reliving that memory over and over and over again.
I just hear a lot of loud noises and shouting, and it just sounds like constant screaming and yelling all the time. Like it's like someone is constantly being tortured here. It sounds like hell.
Okay, so you can watch the whole trailer at the Farsight Institute YouTube channel, or you can actually pay the subscription. It's not much. I don't think it's like $10, and you can see all the content on the Farsight Institute's subscription service. So I want to talk a little bit about this before people just like freak out about this information, and how I can best interpret it, and also my medium experience, and also maybe shed some light on how this happens. So is everybody a prisoner on Earth? I don't think so. Why? Because logically we can deduce a lot of people have past life experiences. They have experiences with their higher selves. They cross over. They don't have any issues. They are able to connect with their higher selves, their past lives, even the life between lives kind of stuff. Really indicates people coming here with a mission from a place that is not this per se. So I think it's safe to say that a lot of people, or a majority of people, are not caught up in this system. And what about the people who are caught up in something like this? Well, as this video goes on, as the documentary goes on, it would seem that what's claimed to happen is that basically extraterrestrials place their criminals in less evolved worlds like this one, so that they don't, as I mentioned previously, reincarnate back into their own civilizations, and that there is a way, and this has been very interesting as I study the reports of secret space program whistleblowers and insiders, and some of that kind of crazy exopolitical information. There's a lot of claims that what we call the soul, which is some people call it like a quantum fluid dynamic, can be transposed or removed from, I guess, the brain or its attachment to a physical vessel and manipulated, which would mean that your actual soul embodiment could be caught up and into a system where it's being moved from vessel to vessel against one's will. The idea being that extraterrestrials have the technology where they don't die, they just move their consciousness from, sometimes even to synthetic vessels, again and again and again. And so they have no issues with that. So in advanced civilizations, death doesn't mean the same thing that it does here. You just move the quantum fluid dynamic into different vessels all day. A civilization that has completely mastered that control over death could then theoretically find a way to manipulate the system of life and death so that you can move that, if you want to call it quantum fluid dynamic, whatever you want to call it, soul, into a place that of their choosing indefinitely, if they want to get rid of somebody. If there is somebody who is basically being a tyrant on their world, then they can turn a non-advanced backwater civilization like this one into a penal colony. And that is kind of the essence of what these remote viewers discovered through the prison planet, remote viewing to prison planet concept. And again, I do think, just theoretically, you would think that this is a plausible kind of thing that maybe could be happening. But yeah, and it seems to be a very cruel, even dark way that it's continued, because there has to be a system in place that forces people back into reincarnating again and again and again, so that they stay on Earth and they don't go back into, you could call it the higher worlds, the higher astral worlds, wherever it may be, that you can then make decisions about where you go again. So the idea is, of course, to keep people here. So when people say we're all stuck in a prison planet, I don't think that's true. I think that some of us are stuck in a prison planet. Some of us potentially belong to that penal system if we had a past life that goes back many generations to when we were extraterrestrials, and possibly an extraterrestrial criminal by whatever that civilization's definitions of a criminal might be. When you think about it, this is the only way that makes sense to be able to deal with prisoners on a highly advanced intergalactic civilization. Because you can't keep people in a cage or in a prison cell. Maybe cryogenics might work, but what do you do about their soul that is unbounded and can come back again and again? What if you have the intergalactic version of Hitler and he just keeps coming back and being a nightmare for that planet? Well, there has to be a system devised to be able to exile them effectively so that they never come back again. And that is the concept of Earth as a prison planet. So now I want to mention some interesting facts about, interesting story that came out of a mediumship session I had with, I think, one of the more credible mediums out there. Before I go further, as a quick midway point here, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, share it, whatever. All these things help keep this work going, keep the channel going. I always appreciate that. I also appreciate anybody who wants to sign up as a patron over at the Patreon page, patreon.com/Afterlife Topics. And a special shout out to you guys who are patrons, involved in the classes, working with me, helping keep this work going. Thank you. All right. So I was very surprised when a medium basically told me that my own father was somebody who was caught in a system like this. And this was only revealed after digging deep into the origins of my father's soul. Now, growing up, my father was a very complex and psychically powerful individual. What's interesting is that my brother and I both would joke that maybe he was from another planet. Sometimes we all joke that we think our parents are from other planets. My father was an exception. My father, for one thing, he had a crazy communion with ETs. If you study like CE5 protocols of contacting ETs, my father was doing that on his own. He would wander into the desert and say he's going to go talk to his UFO friends, and then sure enough, all these crazy lights would appear over the mountains when he'd wander off and say he was communicating with them, and we didn't know what to think, and we all thought he was crazy. He was very psychically powerful in the sense that he could influence anyone, manipulate anyone to do almost anything that he wanted. And he used this for good and straight up evil. It was very difficult growing up with him. And I think me growing up with my father gave me this kind of psychic callus where I can't be messed with by almost anybody, I think, because I had to resist my father's kind of mental control, my whole life growing up. I would see him exert this power on people all the time. I've seen him get out speeding tickets that he clearly deserved and should have been received because he was able to mesmerize a police officer standing at the window. It was unbelievable, his power over other people, and how he straight up used those abilities sometimes for, and I'll admit this on this channel, criminal purposes. It was really crazy with my father. Since my father crossed over, I have still been dealing with his energy and the stuff that he's been doing on that side, picking up and going back to his, usual routine of behavior, which is highly controlling, domineering, and both generous and nice on one hand, and also like destructive and controlling on the other. And how that has been continuing to influence my mother and kind of keep her, from being able to move on beyond him. And it's been a big concern. When I had a very reputable medium basically communicating in with my family, she determined that there was that incredible power with my father, and so we decided to dig deeper into my father's origins as a soul. How did he end up here? How did he become what he became? To summarize a much longer session I had with this medium, she determined that if you scale things back thousands of years, you will go back to my early encounters with my father when I had an Egyptian past life. And so that's something that comes up a lot, is that I belong to this religious organization around the crocodile god Sobek in ancient Egypt. And so that apparently seems to be, a consistent past life of mine, where I was kind of like this male priest and predominantly female crocodile god priestess group. And we were mostly concerned with spreading wisdom, knowledge, even like concepts of liberty and things that we care about today. That information was coming out of this temple that I guess I belong to. So that comes up again and again when I talk to mediums, or even when I do like personal meditative work, or even some astral experiences. So that's a commonality in my life. So that seems to be where I first had encounters with my father, and kind of felt like I was in debt to him because of things he helped me with, which brought me into his circle again in future incarnations, eventually coming back as his son. But going even further back, this medium said, and she was quite astonished, she said, your father belonged to a powerful extraterrestrial kind of empire, and he was a criminal, and that they wanted to get rid of him, and so they put him into a perpetual reincarnation cycle on Earth, and I presume this would also include the astral Earth where he is now, going into that system of earthly incarnation and using the tools like is outlined in this video to keep him oblivious of his past life, belonging to this extraterrestrial civilization that exiled him for being a criminal, for being this kind of galactic tyrant, which, if you knew my father, is completely believable. So that was the origin of my father. And so the question is, why does my father have this constant, like even today on the other side, or when he was incarnated here, why did he have this constant sense of that he had been betrayed, or that he always felt like he wasn't quite worthy, or that it was like this betrayal complex? He could never shake past this. And what was the origin of this? Why does he always feel at odds with everybody else? Why does he always feel like he's going to be betrayed, or people did betray him? Because he has embedded that memory of being exiled by that ET group to Earth into a prison cycle system. So there you go. Very interesting revelation by this medium, which I lean toward believing because it lines up with my father's complex persona. So my final thoughts about this information is that, is Earth a prison planet? I think the answer might be yes. But is everybody a galactic prisoner? No. Is there a way out? Probably. And I believe that the full video, it talks about techniques and methods to escape that if you're in a system like that. But does this mean that you should be paranoid, freaking out, believing everybody is an intergalactic prisoner, believing that everyone is stuck here against their will, and near-death experiences and contact with loved ones, and every spiritual experience and higher transcendental experience is an illusion or a trap? No. Don't let yourself buy into these paranoid beliefs, which I think are very mentally unhealthy. But if you happen to talk to a gifted medium, or even a gifted hypnotherapist, and some information is gleaned that you may have been a incarcerated an inmate, basically, or you may have been sentenced to exist on this planet, to be exiled from whatever your origin home was, then you should be considering how to escape from that system. I want to finally mention that on a gut level, I don't think that this means that it's a completely malevolent system, even if it is cruel and barbaric, forcing people, using a complex technology to force people's energy to keep coming back into this system, or the human system, again and again? What if someone was legitimately a galactic tyrant or criminal? Maybe in complex, advanced ET races, this is just what they have to do. Maybe people have to protect their civilizations when very, very dark entities end up in their civilizations. This may also be why there's so many messed up sociopaths and narcissists and crazies on this planet, because they do get sent here, they get exiled here, so you have so many human souls who are unimaginably dark and, power hungry and all of these things we deal with, because they all get dumped here. But at the end of the day, free will, in my opinion, trumps all. So even the idea of being forced against your will is itself an illusion. That if you can practice enough of a powers of your consciousness and your mind, you can escape out of the system and be able to transcend beyond it, because no piece of ET machinery can permanently contain anybody. If you can develop your mind well enough and be on a path of kind of spiritual enlightenment, then you will be able to get out of a system like that and go where you want to go and have freedom when you cross over. In addition, if you go on that path, most likely that would involve healing from whatever destructive or evil tendencies may have put you into the Earth incarceration system to begin with. So it's kind of a win-win. I would say that, it forces people to stay stuck on this planet until they spiritually evolve enough to the point where they wouldn't be a threat anymore to their old ET race that put them here to begin with. Of course, all this is completely speculative. I suggest, checking out the Farsight film about this. I'd still be more on the fence if it wasn't for that mediumship session that kind of changed my perspective about this and brought me more toward believing that this is real. So again, is Earth a prison planet? Probably yes, it is. But is it something that we all have to panic about and freak out about and add to the litany of conspiracy theories that are taken to extreme levels? No. Thanks for watching, and get involved at AfterlifeTopics.com. Get involved in the Facebook group Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics, or just hang out on this channel, comment, subscribe, get involved as a patron, or check out a book like Understanding Life After DEATH or The Afterlife and Beyond. You can grab those at AfterlifeTopics.com to learn more about what awaits us when we kick the bucket. This is Cyrus Kirkpatrick. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.